I've been told we're a little overtime today, but I spent a while preparing this talk, so sit tight. See where we at. Good morning, Pacific Coast. And good morning and welcome to everybody that's online watching us remotely. Know that you are not remote. You're right here with us. So recently I was in a meeting here at the center. Imagine that. I was at a meeting at the center. And someone was reflecting on how our two centers came together, how Namaste and Seal Beach came together. And just reflecting on their initial thoughts and how excited they were about the possibilities of us getting together. And then kind of reflecting, they had some curiosity about how that was all going to work out, because Seal Beach, their beloved Seal Beaches, as they said, was older and white and straight. And Namaste, well, was a little diverse and gay and lesbian and proud. Two different congregations come together, and you know what? We did it. We did not, yeah? We did not allow apparent differences to keep us apart. We joined together because we have a shared set of values, that we know that there is one power, one life, and that life is God's life, and that life is our life. And that each of us individuals are expressions of that life. The back of all of that diversity, the multiplicity of life's expressions, there is a unity. There is a oneness. There's a unity back of the multiplicity. I love that word, multiplicity. It's just fun to say it. And it's so much bigger than just diversity. It's huge. It's everything. As you might have heard, today is June 1st, and it's the start of Pride Month. Yes. So how many of you have ever been to a Pride parade or a Pride event? Wow, look at you. Whoa, look at this. My first Pride parade was back in Chicago. I don't remember the year. I think it was the late 80s. And things were a little bit different back then. Parade was much smaller. It was basically people getting out in the streets, taking the street. Politicians did not show up to the Pride Parade. They wanted nothing to do with the Pride Parade. Corporations did not show up to the Pride Parade. They didn't want anything to do with the gay community. And as you were leaving the Pride Parade, you're walking home, you wanted to be a little careful because you didn't know who might be following you and what mischief they might be up to. As our beloved Jackie was just talking about. None of that's gone away. It's still very much here. So, generally, the riot at Stonewall back in 1969 is considered the beginning of the gay civil rights movement. But before Stonewall, there was an incident that happened 2 years earlier in 1967 at a bar in LA called the Black Cat. And that really laid the foundation for Pride. Does anybody remember what it was like to be a homosexual in the 1950s or 1960s? Anybody here remember? Yeah, some of you do. That's the cool thing about having older people in the community is they remember things. Right? They can tell you how it really was. So back in the 50s, 60s, If you were caught engaging in any sexual, romantic activity with someone of the same sex, or you were caught dressing as in the opposite gender, you could be arrested. You could be sent to jail. Your name, your photo might be published in the newspaper. Your life could be ruined, and lives were ruined. This happened to people. People lost their jobs, they lost their families, they lost everything. They were ostracized from society. That's how we lived. There was no safe place to go, whether you were gay, lesbian, or transgender. And one of the few public places that gay people went to was the bars. The bars were really the church. They were the community centers. But the bars were frequently raided by the police. On New Year's Eve in 1967, people gathered at one of those bars, the Black Cat, to celebrate New Year's. And as is the custom, when the clock struck midnight, and it was 1967, people turned to each other and kissed each other, embraced one another. And at that moment, plainclothes policemen who had been in the bar with them all evening long arrested them, hauled them off to jail because of lewd behavior, because men were kissing men, because women were kissing women. But something different happened that night. Even though people were really used to these raids going on, something changed. And people decided, we're going to do something about it this time. And they went out and they peacefully protested. They got together and said, no more. If you read some of the signs, they might look kind of vaguely familiar, or signs you might be reading these days. And from that event, a group formed, and they called themselves Personal Rights in Defense and Education, otherwise known as Pride. The term Pride has survived and evolved into the Pride celebrations that we know today, here in the United States and around the world. Now, the 1950s and 60s, things seemed pretty black and white in terms of society's worlds. Girls played with dolls, boys played with trucks. Women wore dresses, men wore suits and ties. Women could be secretaries, men were always the boss. Only men and women could get married, and white people rode at the front of the bus, and black and brown people rode at the back of the bus. But people started to rebel and demand their civil rights. It is our human nature to be free, to desire to be loved and to love, to want to express our true, authentic selves. Nothing can deny that. Nothing is going to ever change that. That is who we are as human beings. That is the way Source Life made us to be. Take a breath with me right now. Humans, we seem to be wired to notice differences. Now, for our ancient ancestors, that was great. Protected them from the wilds of the world, kept them safe. But we still have that sensibility of noticing differences deeply within us. And it can still be helpful. But it can also, that same ability to recognize differences can also create the illusion that we're separate from one another and the world. And that can create a whole lot of unwanted problems. Uniformity is not nature's way. Diversity is nature's way. Unity is not uniformity. For example, we are the United States of America. We are not the uniform states of America. Diversity is important to a healthy ecosystem. Having a routine or immersing ourselves in a social group where everyone thinks and acts alike might make us feel comfortable, but it's not necessarily healthy for our personal growth. We may form concepts about the world that are out of alignment with nature. Some people consider homosexuality and transgenderism unnatural. But let me ask you this. Did you know that there are over 1,500 species so far identified in the wild that exhibit homosexual behavior, same-sex behavior, everything from taking care of the children to actual, well, you know. Also, in nature, we find animals that can change their sex. And it's estimated about 5% of animals can do that. But if you take out insects who are generally unisexual, that rises to about 30%. So it's a pretty significant number in the population of the world. So it's not unusual in nature. We see the world as we think. If our thinking is limited, our vision of the world is limited. We may be missing out on the multitude of diversity that is presented on the planet to us right here, right now. We live disconnected from life, from the diversity that has emerged from the oneness to express itself. Back of all of the diversity is the oneness. Everything is united in the oneness. Marsha P. Johnson was a trans woman, and she was present at the Stonewall riots back in '69. And she's kind of an icon in the LGBTQ world. And it's a really simple question. How many years has it taken people to realize that we are all brothers and sisters and human beings in the human race? And I might ask if maybe we still have to understand that more, dig into that more deeply. Now, I know for some of you, you might be having some questions like, what's this LGBTQ plus? What is all of this about? I'm a little bit, this is a lot. It's a lot for me in the community. It's always changing. So I'm going to take a moment and just break down some of this for you a little bit. But the place we're going to start is by talking, with the help of the genderbread person, we're going to talk about biological sex, gender, and sexuality. Because it's really important you understand those distinctions before you can really understand what all is going on. So we're going to start with sex, biological sex. Now, in the United States, when a baby's born, doctor takes a look at the baby's genitals and decides if it's a male or female. Now, in most instances, it's pretty clear, but there are cases where it's not. Child is born with both genitalia, and they're intersexed. So, in those cases, up until recently, the doctor would just take a guess and just say they're female or they're male, and that would impact that individual for the rest of their life. So, what's interesting is there's the things we look at with our eyes and that we see and how we understand the world, but then there's actually how our biology works. And if we look at the chromosomes that make up our sex, there are actually 6 common biological sexes. So XX female, XY male, most common. But then you could also be X, XXY, XYY, XXXY, and you could be those things and not even know it. So sex is not as black and white as we might think it is. I'm going to go back to gendered person here. Now, gender, and up here who have gender identity, gender expression. Gender is a social construct. Women wear dresses, men wear suits and ties, men don't cry, women don't get angry. Think of all those are social contracts, how we behave and how we express ourselves out in the world. It's interesting that I know for myself, I get kind of caught up in that this is the way our world is because I live in the United States. It's hard for me to think about what's outside, how other cultures might have worked. But not all cultures have looked at gender expression the way that we do. For example, in the Jewish Talmud, which is a text, it's a huge compendium of Jewish law that is scholars debate and talk about. They actually identify 7 genders within the Talmud. And if you are familiar with Two-Spirit, which is kind of a new term for indigenous Native Americans are using, it is to describe people who bring in both male and female characteristics and honors a tradition in many Native American cultures where those individuals were actually honored within the community, in their tribes. They may have been tribal healers, but they had a place within society. They weren't ostracized. And then let's look at our sexual orientation. And that's probably a little easier to understand. Heterosexual, you prefer to be with someone of the opposite sex. If you're homosexual, you're intimate with someone of the same sex. And if you like to do a little bit of both, you're somewhere in between. You're bisexual. So really, if we look at all of these, they're a continuum. It's not all black and white. Making sense so far? You follow me? Okay. Let's move on to the big one here. LGBTQIA+. All right. L is for lesbian, G is for gay, B is for bisexual, T is for transgender, Q is for queer, I is for intersex, A is for asexual, and the plus is an umbrella for anyone who might be anything else that is not cisgender and heteronormative. Big words, right? Will I leave time for questions? I hope so. All right. You can ask me later. Now, as far as I'm concerned, once an acronym gets to be a third of the alphabet, we might consider rethinking what we call it. Now, I'm not really creative in name changes, but I think humanity might be just a good way to phrase it. So is the world really black and white? Nah. It's a full spectrum of color. And pride is an expression of that. It's about showing up as your best, most beautiful, loving, joyful expression of life that you are. It's being out and free. to be who God wants to express through you. That is pride. One of the things that I love about the writings of Ernest Holmes is that he never lays down specific laws or rules about how you should be. Like, don't eat pork, or don't drink alcohol, or don't love that type of person, or don't marry that type of person. But he does give us guidance on how we can navigate the complexities of the diverse expressions of life. And how we, most importantly, how we can unite with the oneness that is back of the multiplicity. He wrote, "The criterion for any man or any person as to what is right or wrong for them is not to be found in some other person's judgment. The criterion is, does that thing I wish to do express more life, more happiness, more peace to myself, and at the same time harm no one? If it does, it's right. It's not selfish. But if it's done at the expense of anyone, then in such degree, we're making a wrong use of the law." And what he means by law here is what you think about, you bring about. What thoughts you plant into the collective consciousness, into the mind of God, is what will sprout, what will grow. We aren't responsible for moving the world. It's going to move with or without us. That doesn't mean, though, that we don't have a duty or a responsibility to our society. But it is clear that we can fulfill our social and community responsibilities with joy and the power of love. Bayard Rustin was a civil rights activist. He worked closely with Martin Luther King. He was responsible for organizing the March on Washington in 1963. He was also a gay man. And much to Martin Luther King's credit, there was a lot of pressure on King to get rid of Rustin because he was gay. But to King's credit, he didn't do that. He kept Rustin on board. We need, in every community, a group of angelic troublemakers. Are you ready to be angelic troublemakers? I'm coming back to that because that was not loud enough. Our beloved Jackie told you where the United States ranks in terms of its treatment towards the LGBTQ+ community. In the United States, in 2020, there were over 100 anti-LGBTQ+ bills across the nation proposed. To date, in 2025, there have been over 850 bills in the first 6 months of this year alone have been proposed in legislators across our nation. We need angelic troublemaking. I've got a call to action for you. You ready for a call to action? Yes. Your call to action is to learn something about the LGBTQ+ community that you didn't know before. That's step one. Step two is to take what you learned and don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone. Do an inspired action. Talk with a friend. Talk with somebody you meet in public. Write a letter to your congressperson. Something. Do something. We need our allies. You are allies. All of you that came from Seal Beach, not knowing how you're going to handle Namaste, you showed yourselves to be strong, to be brave, to be courageous, to come with an open hearts. You are allies, and we need you. Healthy, prosperous communities are diverse. Be part of building the world that we all know is possible for today and future generations. I know I might be running over a little bit, but let's pray together. You ready for that? I want you to just take in a breath. Breathe in that good life, and I want you to exhale what's no longer serving you. And as you turn inward, don't shut out the world. No, you are in this community with all of us. We're here in this together. There is one life, and this life is God's life. Ever present, always active, creating the stars and beating your heart. A limitless power that surges through each and every being, through you, as you, expressing itself, wanting to be its wondrous, diverse, creative entity expressed as you. We are one with this life, this divine entity, one action that is inspired through all of us, knowing that we are creating a world that we know is possible, filled with love, joy, freedom, and abundance for all of the creation. And know that this life, it celebrates the diversity. It revels in the multiplicity of expression, and knowing that it is united in this oneness behind all of it. We're together as one. And I say thank you to each and every person that shows up today and each and every day as that expression, as your authentic self, as your loving self, as your free and joyous being that you are. Thank you. And I release this, knowing it's good and very good. Thank you. Thank you, Pacific Coast. You're amazing. You're a blessing. Thank you for letting me remind you who you truly are.